Welcome to the comeback with Boomerang Healthcare, your podcast for relief, recovery, and restoration. I'm Dr. Peter Abaci.
And I'm Dr. Sarah Goozeé. As doctors, we know healing isn't just about treatment. It's about finding the right tools, mindset, and support to move you forward.
You can have pain, you might be injured, or even hurting on the inside. But with all that you got going on, you can still have a really great life. And that is what we are here for. This is the comeback. Let's get started. I'm so excited. Sarah, are you excited?
I know.
So-
Extremely. What a great topic and what a great guest. Welcome, Lory. We're honored to have you.
I'm so happy to be here. This is not only, this is so helpful it's going to be so helpful to so many people, including me, hopefully.
So we have, for our listeners, today is such a special treat. We have Lory Tatoulian, who is a funny comedian and a great soul, and has kindly agreed to share her life, her story, her experience, and how humor really affects the human experience. And, we all go into healthcare to help people, to lift them up, to make the experience of their lives better physically, emotionally, spiritually. And when I was kind of looking into this whole topic, I was like, humor and comedy, it's like a continuum of health and wellness and medicine. So, Lory, this is going to be great.
Yes, I'm very passionate about this topic.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, Lory.
Oh, so I was born at 7:31 a.m. No, we won't go that far. I am, like you said, I'm a comedian. I'm an improviser. I write comedy. I do comedy all day long. My world is a lot in make-believe fun world, which is great. And I teach at the Groundlings, which is a world-renowned place for improvisation. People from all over the world come to learn improv. Some really great people have come out of the Groundlings, like Pee Wee Herman, Will Ferrell, Melissa McCarthy, Maya Root. I could keep going on and on and on. So I teach there, and we teach comedy. We teach how, we take what you have, because you really can't teach how to be funny, but we take your comedy bone, your funny bone, and we hone that. So I teach improvisation, sketch comedy. And besides that, I perform a lot. I write a lot of sketch comedy. I write for comedy movies, for television shows. I perform a lot. So it's like round the clock comedy. This is behind me is I'm in a room that's like my costume room, and I could show you later, but it's all, my wigs. This is some of them. And then I have Post-its all over for sketches and punchlines and ideas and all the projects that I'm working on. So I love to make people laugh. I just love to make people laugh.
I got to tell you, Lory, when I was growing up, I was a huge fan of the show MASH, the series. Yeah. Like I got to a point where I had watched so many episodes so many times that I could recite the show while I was watching it, what everybody was going to say.
Yeah.
And I think, that combination of humanity with humor in taking care of people, who are injured or intense, situations, it became like almost a little bit of a role model. I wouldn't say that's what made me want to be a doctor or anything like that, but it was sort of a guiding role model of how to get through a challenging day, right? With you gotta make your coworkers laugh, you gotta smile. And so I think, what you do, and when you bring that to people in their lives, it's so it's so impactful. Maybe tell us a little bit about how you got here, what got you in that direction.
I don't know. It was, I just feel like it's innate. I feel that I was born with it. I can't imagine myself doing anything else. I feel like if I did anything else, I would be a horrible failure. Like no other company should ever hire me besides something that has to do with comedy. But the way that I got started is since I was young, I was always performing. So my father was an Armenian priest, Armenian Orthodox priest.
Mhm.
Armenian priests can get married and have children.
Mhm.
So I grew up in a very traditional household. It wasn't strict and it wasn't like Bible beating at all. It's actually very different from that, but it was just rife with, ritual and community. And like these clergy would come to our house, and our house was always open to everyone. My parents were very hospitable. They were like, they loved people. They loved community, all sorts of, not only Armenian, but like all sorts of people. And I grew up in a small town outside of Fresno, and there was always people at our house. So I always had an audience, and I just loved, like, people would, this is before cell phones, and people would be sitting around in the living room, and I would just start making, like, do a stand-up hour or start entertaining. And I was literally the entertainment, to the point where people would come and they'd be like, Lory, go dance Michael Jackson. Lory, go do Madonna. And I would be like singing like a virgin to, I didn't know what it meant at the time. I don't think they did either. And it was just in my bones. And then after that, through school, I was always in the school plays, and then college. And it's when I got to college where I was like, you know what? We're doing all these plays that are really great, but it's not really speaking like my experience. I love Shakespeare, but I want to know what's going on like now, in my world. So I staged my first one woman show, and it went great. And then from there on, I kind of took the reign and started to create my own material and what I think is funny, like I do think, some of these playwrights are great and funny, but I wanted to express my own experience of what's going on. So that's kind of how it just started.
How did your kind of mom and dad, did they embrace your career path, and how did, how did that go?
Yeah, big time. They encouraged it, like, big time. They always were like putting me up in front of, not like they were like pageant moms, but like, Lottie, go see this poem. And that comes from their performer, their artists themselves. So even though my dad was a priest, before that, he was in comedic plays when he was younger. When he first moved to America, like, nobody knows this, but he got accepted into UC Santa Barbara Film School, but there was like a visa problem that he didn't end up going into that path. My mom is a poet and an educator, so my grandmother loved performance. Like, in our family, we really, really value the arts.
Mhm.
So it wasn't something looked down upon. It was actually something looked up to. Like, you should strive to do your work and do it. Go. They were constant. Even like when my dad I would be in my bedroom, like in high school, writing things, and he would come. He's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "I'm writing this thing. I'm not sure it's funny." And he would brainstorm with me, and he'd be like, "I don't like it like that. Put it like that." So they were very encouraging. And I just want to add this. I mean, when I was first starting, some of my stuff could be raunchy or pushing the envelope. It's comedy. Some of the older Armenian traditional ladies would be like, a priest daughter should not be doing things like that. He received a letter from this older woman who was like 90 saying, like, your daughter shouldn't be doing these things on stage. And he read the letter and he just put it in the trash. He's like, this is, you're not a priest, you're a performer, and you make people laugh, which is, I mean, in his eyes, in their eyes, it's, an act of care and love. Just, that's what we're preaching. It's just done in a different way, I guess.
I knew your dad, as I was mentioned before we
Mhm.
started, when I was a young guy, when he was a priest,
Uh-huh.
and he always had a twinkle in his eye, and he was always joyful and always wanted to spread joy to other people. And it was, it was always good to be in his presence. It was always
Yeah.
nice. Yeah.
Yes, you hit the nail on the head with that one. Yeah.
That's also very telling because, the life of a priest often is to, right, counsel and support their clergy and their congregation. And it can be really stressful. And so it sounds like it was almost like kind of like role model to keep that like positive outlook and that sense of humor to kind of be like increasingly resilient. And so I'm curious if you found that to also be helpful for yourself.
A- Absolutely. So thank you for bringing that up because my mom and dad would counsel a lot of people. We had people coming through with all
Mhm.
sorts of problems, and they felt safe with my parents. And you know, I would listen in, and not because I was being nosy, but I was like, oh, this is
Mhm.
what's going on. I guess I was being nosy actually. But through, I guess from a young age, I realized like, oh, life is hard and people go through really hard things, like not to get very dark, but like parents losing children or going through a divorce, or the fact that at a very young age, I realized because my dad would do funerals, baptisms, funeral is like all the rites of life, like birth, baptism, in our tradition,
Mhm.
getting married and then funerals. I would go to funerals were like a common thing.
Mhm.
Um, and I realized like, oh, you die, so that like life's big moments were very present in our house, and to the point where the phone would ring and it would be somebody grieving
Mhm.
because they wanted my father to give the last rites. So I would be like the operator. Mom, Uncle Vahan's wife died. Come in,
Mhm.
they need you over. And then I would counsel them, like whatever I heard as a kid, I would say to them, it's okay. He's in a better place. I didn't even know what I was saying, but life's big moments were very much a part of my life from a very early age.
So you lived life growing up in a very intense way in some ways because you were interacting with people when they were at the sort of extremes of their existence. Did
Mhm.
that affect the characters and the comedy and the routines that you created later in life, would you say?
Absolutely. Yes. Like one of the first characters I created, it's an Armenian name, Hripsime Dandigin. It's like the Armenian housewife. And she's like a know it all, chatty. And I mean, I created this like 20 years ago. And I think it was through her where I started to talk about all these things, and giving marriage advice or life advice. She even had an advice column, in a newspaper. So it was taking those big life moments and then twisting them and presenting them in a comedic way. So maybe like some things that people are going through or we don't want to talk about or whatever, but it's presenting it in a framed through a comedic lens. Yeah. So I mean, honestly, every character, so from the housewife to the crazy neighbor to, I mean, I wasn't there just making fun of people
Yeah.
in my parents' parish, but since I was a kid, I saw people through character, like through their point of view,
Mhm.
like, oh, why is he doing that, and try to become them. So
And have you seen sort of you see the polarization of politics and life in America,
mhm.
and how does that affect the comedy and the way that you interact with your audience even?
Oh yeah, I love that. Okay, I'll just say this. I am very thrusted. Okay. So my dad was a priest, and then I ended up marrying somebody who was a mayor of the town that we live in. So politics it's like church and state were
Mhm.
like, and I didn't ask for this. Like, I wasn't like, I'm going to grow up and be, Jacqueline Kennedy and be like be a political wife. But I was like, what a fun role to play. Let's do it. So, um, I, this is just me speaking. because of that glimpse into politics through my husband's work, um, I try to see where people are coming from, honestly. I try to see, like, why do they feel this way? And why are they so extreme in that way? And then I feel that it's my job because, especially now, everything is so tense and there's factions. I try with my work to make fun of all of it equally to show, like, in my point of view, it's all like the same ish, like, I don't know if it's the same, but it's like, where are we coming from? There's a reason why this person thinks this way and this way. And I just love, I'm kind of, is this the word, sacrilegious about it? Like, I don't care
Well,
what someone says.
you're diving deep
Yeah, I
and
want to
what's
make fun of
behind it.
all of it because from, again, my experience, I've seen that it kind of is bad in both situations. In all situations, there's just shitty, can I cuss? There's just shitty people all around and there's good people all around in any group.
So I love
Yeah.
that your comedy is politically agnostic, so to speak. You know, you don't discriminate, right?
Yes, thank you for.
I'm just going to make fun of it all, right? And so
Yeah,
I love that. And it sounds like it doesn't come from a place of right judgment, but rather a place of curiosity.
absolutely. Yeah, it is.
I love that. And I'm so curious because your characters and your material are hilarious. And I'm so curious about your writing process and where this comes from and how do you organize all of your various materials and things like that? Like I just imagine like post-its everywhere, or is there like an inner monologue that you like turn into a script? Like tell us a little bit about that.
Sure. And thank you. Do you have 5 hours for this part? Because I'm going to need your help. Um, I
Yes, we do.
sometimes okay, great. I sometimes have a problem turning it off. That's my issue. Not that you asked, but I feel like I'm someone who has too many ideas. So I try to like organize it all, and I've gotten much better at that as I've gotten older, where it's like, okay, I'm just going to focus on this project. Um, so yeah, so my mind is constantly going. I have either on my phone or I have a notepad where I jot down ideas and I try to park it for later. And it's a little bit even more jumbled because it's sketch comedy. So it's not like if you're a movie writer or you write for MASH, it's like, well, back then, but you're writing just one story. Sketch comedy is like anything that's happening right now. You know what I mean? So I'll be writing, let's say I'd be working on a show, a script, but then something happens in the news and I'm like, wait, I got to go to that. So my writing process, to go back to that, is I wake up very early in the morning. That's when my brain is fresh. And I just feel this excitement to honestly write. And especially when I'm really into an idea. So I write and I'm like, and then I write in the afternoon. I go to work, I teach, and then I just try to sneak it in for the rest of the day. But I have to just recently, I'm like, okay, I need to like put, kind of schedule it out a little so that I'm not in like make believe land all the time. I don't think that's healthy. So it's a lot of organizing, which I'm getting better at because I don't have an organized brain.
Lory, I've written a couple of books and I've done a lot of articles for WebMD and other places. And I found that I really had to compartmentalize my brain. Like my day job as a doctor, I could never, ever do anything writing or creative in any way while I was in doctor mode. And I would have to find a space and a time completely separate from that in order for me to tap into that side of it in order to write something or
Right.
produce something. But it sounds like you're kind of always really your creative brain is always sort of on alert for
Yeah. It's great. And sometimes it's like, and I've been better at it. So yeah. So I've been better at it, meaning where, I mean, I don't just sit home and I'm writing all the time, but I, try to go out and do think, and you have to, as a writer, you have to participate in life and to know what it's about. The only thing is, my work, my job is also very creative, and it's in make believe land. And lately I'm like, maybe I should just get a job as an accountant part time, like do something so non creative. I know most people crave creativity. I'm a little bit like, let me just go, I don't know, work at a lumber yard. You know, I'm never going to do that, but it tells us. Yeah, but I love it. I don't know.
There's creativity though, and then there's creativity that's interacting with humanity and the human
Yes.
experience. And
Mhm.
so that's I think it's very different than being detached and being creative versus yours is always there's a social connectivity behind I think what you're doing, maybe most of the time.
Oh, yeah, that's true. I guess no, it is when I'm performing, I feel that. And that's why when when I'm writing, I know what the end goal is. I mean, I do enjoy the process of writing, but I know that the end goal is being on that stage, being in a room full of laughter, and connecting with people.
It's interesting as you're talking about this, there's so much research about the benefits of laughter, and the science of happiness has been really popular the last 15, 20 years. And I never thought about it from the perspective of for the comedian as well. Right?
Mhm.
To know that you were the one who like triggered the laughter and hopefully then triggered, right, their endorphins and all their feel good hormones and everything like that. So I am kind of curious, do you find the process also therapeutic for yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. And just to piggyback on what you're saying, maybe it's also kind of like a doctor or a priest, where nobody thinks about the doctor,
Mhm.
how the doctor's feeling, or how the priest, like the priest might need prayers too.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Mhm.
So the comedian, I'm not saying I'm suffering, but for me, it's absolutely therapeutic. It's it's how I just process. That's how I process things. It's like I'll take this issue and I'll talk about it through a character.
Mhm.
So if it's anxiety or like these uncomfortable feelings or something hard we're going through, that's just how I express it. And a cool thing that has happened, which I wanted to bring up on this podcast, is I've gotten messages from people, and I'm not saying this to like, think brag or whatever, but I've gotten messages from people who are like, I'm going through cancer and I've watched your videos of this one character. Her name is Sosi. And it really helped me get through chemo. Or I was going through this really hard time. And then it was honestly I came to your show and it just lifted my spirit. And
Mhm.
that to me is like, I mean, that's not what I have in mind when I'm creating. I just create it. But when I hear things like that, I'm like, that is so fulfilling to me.
Mhm.
So yes, but for me, selfishly, um, it's fun. I don't know. I feel very fortunate that this is my work, like a playland every day. I mean, it's not like fun. There's a formula and the drudge of writing kind of sucks,
Mhm.
but it's exciting once that final product is done, that show is done, and it's people, you're backstage and you're getting ready and the lights are going to go up and this whole thing you've created in your room by yourself is now coming alive and people are laughing. I mean, it's like the best drug. I don't do drugs. I've never done drugs. I don't need
I'm glad to hear that you're getting feedback of how you're impacting people's lives. When people are with cancer or some of these, other health problems. And I was wondering, I was thinking when you were talking too, there are times where Sarah or myself might be working with a patient, maybe a really challenging situation, maybe a very emotional one, and you walk out of the room and you're like, wow. But then you got to walk back into the next room
Mhm.
and be, you know, kind of wipe it off
Yeah.
and be there for the next person,
Mhm.
and try to put that away and open up to the next person you're working with. I'm just wondering if you've like had nights or you've been on stage or had performances where maybe you were having a bad day or
Mhm.
something, wasn't, good in your life, yet you had to be, soci or haripsame or, make everybody laugh and not know that. And, have you had those moments? And if you did, how did you work through that?
Yeah. I was actually thankful that I had a performance during those moments because
Mm.
for me, those moments have been very healing. So the one that comes very fast to me is when my father passed away. I was very close with my father, and I had a performance scheduled literally 5 days after. It was even before the funeral had happened.
So it's
And
it's it's raw right
Yeah.
there.
like way raw,
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah.
Yeah. And and I was like, should I do this or not do this? Should I cancel it? And I was like, you know what? My dad would want me. He would absolutely say, like, go do the performance. And I did. And I almost feel like that performance was a gift from heaven because it just people, and even a friend of mine who's seen a lot of came to the show and was like, that was one of your best. And I was like, what? And it's because I think I just had all that energy and all that love I felt for my dad. And I just felt like some spiritual something going on that I I performed in it. I'm not saying, oh, everything was done and I was happy, but it really was medicine for me. And that's because I'm like, this is life. Like, and that's what I experienced growing up. There's suffering, there's laughter, and but that communal coming together, that's why I love theater and comedy it is healing. It is. So that was my one of the experiences. But there's also been times when I physically don't feel well, like as a woman, like during my cycle, I'll be having a really bad, it's like I have no energy and I feel like I'm literally going to pass out. But those are actually harder where I'm like really pushing and hydrating. And there was one time I was like holding on to my scene partner because I thought I was going to literally, I'm like, I'm about to go down
Oh
right now,
wow.
but you can't, you gotta, it's like being an athlete in that way, you gotta just go, go with it. So yeah.
Well,
So for me, that's how it's been beneficial. And even like one more, like back in the day, like when I would break up with a guy, and I'd be like so screwed up, I would go to a show and be like, hey, this is fun. I don't need a man.
And did you tell any jokes about the man or you just
I
let
was
it
just
go?
about to
Yeah.
ask,
Yes.
did the man turn into a character? I'm just
Yes.
curious. People want to
Yeah.
know.
Oh yeah.
Oh
It's
yeah.
revenge comedy. That's revenge comedy.
Revenge comedy.
Oh, I love it.
Uh,
So it sounds like, you use a lot of comedic relief. And it's interesting because for some time people used to think, oh, if I crack jokes too much, I'm like trying to avoid, reality, or I'm trying to like avoid something that's so painful. Like you really should be like more like serious about it and explore it. And it's so funny because I'm a big fan of like positive psychology and I do a lot of, various types of therapy with my patients. And I do use a lot of laughter because I encourage my patients to find their funny bone again. Because often when they're injured and they've been in a dark place and they're not feeling so good, for them to go find some comedic relief. And it's tough because to your point, sometimes when you're in a dark place, it takes a lot of effort, right? To whether it be,
mhm.
be funny or to be present with it. And so I am curious if there's anything that ever helps you when you're struggling to be in that mindset or going through a tough time, anything in particular that helps you, any
No,
other
it makes
tools
me
in your
tell me.
toolbox?
I run out of my house screaming down the street in a panic attack. Is that healthy? No, I'm just kidding.
I
No,
do have an opening next week. I'm just saying, Lori.
okay. No, I think I'm
Tuesday at
gonna let
1,
you
call
jump
me.
in after this. What helps me? I eat. All my things are very unhealthy. No, seriously, I try. Okay, first let me say this. I try not to be that person who's always cracking a joke, like going to a funeral and being like, oh. So I try to like reel it in. Actually, my family and my husband, sometimes thinks I'm like the most unfunniest person in real life because you know what I mean? So that's that. But for me, well, obviously it's comedy. Like for me, it's getting back into project mode has been the biggest thing. So if I feel things are falling apart, I find something that I want to work on. And that has been number one for me. Mm-hmm. So, and I don't know, again, I am not the therapist, but with friends, I've talked about this. And when they're down in the dumps or whatever, I'm like, work on something, make something, and put yourself into it. So for mine, it's comedy, but for somebody else, it could be ceramics or whatever it is. So that's number one for me is when I feel out of control, it's like, bring it in and make something, take control that way. So I would say that, and all the other tools I have are very unhealthy. So I'm not going to, no, I don't. I don't know. I go on walks a lot. I go on walks a lot. I walk a lot. I love walking.
Well,
I do that.
Yeah, that's phenomenal. And I'll say it's okay to have, some unhealthy coping tools. Most people do. Yeah. But I love your basically compartmentalizing, right? And then focusing on the things you can control, because you can't control a lot of the other, negative challenges and pain in your life. But, you can go and focus on your work and take a break from all the heaviness in your life. And I think that's phenomenal. Yeah. And also children. I don't have children yet, but like my nieces and nephews, we just started this summer. This is so crazy. We started kickball games with the family. So I've been working very hard on this project and I'm in my brain a lot. I'm like, let's do kickball games. And everybody's been coming. So it's just fun. And I hadn't played kickball since I was in elementary school.
My daughter's been in all these kickball leagues in San Francisco. It sounds so fun. Yeah.
You need to play. Everybody needs to do it. What was it? 2 days ago, I asked all my cousins to come. And like you, I have a cousin who's a doctor and one's an engineer, and they're very serious people. And we just had a blast. So join the kickball league. So I think play is important too, going back to being a kid, even though my life is very much being kiddish, but I was like, let's play kickball, and everybody's into it. So yeah.
Oh, I love that. I love that. Apparently I missed the memo on kickball. Good to know.
Yeah.
So I'll have to look into that.
My daughter loves it.
That's awesome. Wow.
Yeah.
So like professional league playing?
No, it's like a rec league. They have them in San Francisco where she lives. And, you get a group of people, you sign up and you play like several games and then there's playoffs. And then when that ends, then they start another league and she keeps signing up.
Oh, I love that.
I think it's a great way to blow off steam and
so fun
after work. And
yeah.
Any stories or thoughts about the audience? You're on stage and you're giving it your all, and I'm sure there's all kinds of characters out there, and thoughts or tips on how to manage a crowd. I mean, that is an art that I don't think I probably would ever have.
Right. And I love that question because I love connecting with the crowd, like breaking that fourth wall between the performer and the audience. And some of my, I would say, most successful pieces are the ones where I'm a character and I go out in the audience and it's pure improv. Like, I don't know who's out there. I don't know what I'm going to say. I don't know. I mean, I'm working through the point of view of character, so that helps. And I do have improv tools to guide that. But the audience itself, I love when an audience is like talking. I don't mind that. I mean, if someone's like really disruptive and heckling the whole time, that's annoying, and that hasn't happened. But I'm there for it. So I love when an audience is like, I'll hear gasps or like, oh no, she did. They're totally like involved in the performance.
It gives you more energy, maybe.
Absolutely. And then we'll break that fourth wall and respond. But there's also those characters where I really do go into the audience, and that might be a little uncomfortable for people. Like some people don't want to be, talked to, and I leave them alone. But I'll do structured improv, we call it, where you take an audience member and you do improv based on their life or their thing, and you involve I love involving the audience in my performances.
If you're ever nervous on stage, and I say this knowing that if you take a look at all the phobias, public speaking is number one, and death is number two. So people would rather, right? I just want to come to face to face with mortality than go on a stage, and so that's how much most Americans hate public speaking. So I'm curious, do you ever, like, especially now with like new characters or certain crowds, do you ever get like a little nervous, and how do you handle that?
That is weird because death and airplanes are my phobias. No, I really don't. I never had. It's weird. I don't have that fear of getting up in front of an audience. What I do get nervous is if I don't know my lines well, and I don't know what I'm doing. There's been some shows where I don't feel quite 100%. We've got this, strong. Like I don't know my lines that well. That's when I'll get nervous. I'll be like, I mean, I do get butterflies. Absolutely. It's not like anxiety. Yeah. I think that used to happen earlier, very early in my career. When I first started one woman shows and I was like 19, I would get bad anxiety, but I would do it. And then, but now over the years, I crave it now. I have no qualms about it, but those are the nervous, like, I think I get nervous. Yeah. If I don't know my lines or if I feel physically not well, that's when I get nervous. I'm like, oh my God, am I going to go out and because I've been working so hard on the show or physically I don't feel well. I'm like, oh, am I going to I have a vertigo problem. So I'm like, am I going to pass out because I give so much energy, So, but no, I don't. I get butterflies, but not like anxiety. No.
And I think that's fantastic too, because what you said is actually something we actually often encourage, which is you can be nervous and do it anyways, and then over time your body kind of learns through that exposure that it's not that bad. That's fantastic.
No. Yeah.
As a teacher, if you put your teaching hat on, Lory, and you have here a doctor and a psychologist who, we want to make our patients happy when we can. Are there any tools to help us be maybe a little funnier? How can you coach us up a little bit?
That's like a whole program.
I got to sign up for that course.
But I'll start with this. I feel that everybody has a sense. I mean, that's what makes humans so amazing that, I don't think animals have sense of humors. I don't know. That's like for a zoologist.
I feel like the seagulls are always laughing at me.
Okay. Then you could diagnose them as some psychosis. I don't know. Like as humans, from what I know, is that we're the only species that has a sense of humor, which is so cool. So where was I going with that?
Well, you were going to coach us up a little bit.
We need help, Lory.
Okay. I don't know why I was going down species route. Okay. Oh, this is what I was going to say. So I feel that everybody has creativity. I don't care if you think you're the most boring and some people are like, I'm just not funny. I think everybody has it. So as a teacher, I try to cull that and I try to bring that out in people. You know what I'm going to say, but this is like more complicated, is I love improv. And I always say, if the world did improv in politics, if like at the UN, they played improv games, I feel like there would be peace on earth. So it would be great to see like hospitals or maybe in therapy groups, like to do improv games because it's very psychology based. It's very guttural and it's really freeing people up. You know what I mean? Like when I start my classes, I'm like, we're going to do crazy things in here, meaning like you're going to act so silly and it might be weird but there's no judgment. Like we are literally going to be like children, like that, how young children, where they don't judge themselves and they just do. And these are what the classes are like for adults. It's like you're playing all these games, you're working with each other, and it's funny things come up. So I can, that's the first tip I would do is maybe bring improv games. Me, I'll come and teach a class, or take an improv class and then see like it would have to be more like in a group setting, to play some of these games. And I, at the Groundlings and other places I've taught, we not only get like, oh, I want to be a comedian and I'm a professional actor. We get that a lot, but we also get a lot of people who are like, I'm an engineer. They have very regular adult jobs, and they just want to have fun and they love it. So I would say implementing improv wherever we can would be so fun.
Sarah, we got some homework to do.
It definitely sounds like it. I will say one of the things I do recommend to my patients sometimes is we're always encouraging patients to build up this pain coping skills like toolbox, so to speak. And it's got all sorts of things in it. For some patients, they have, heating pads or ice packs or meditation or prayer. And something I often tell my patients is, if you're going to be doing your stretching on the floor, your home exercise from PT, and then you're going to sit on an ice pack, why don't you also add one more tool? And that's laughter. And so now it sounds like I'm going to tell them to check out some amazing improv, perhaps yours. So tell me, where can we find you?
So, well, I'm in Los Angeles. So the Groundlings is such a great place. We offer classes for beginners, which is like if you have no improv experience, we have classes. Those are workshop classes. And there's improv classes in most major cities or around them. So San Francisco, New York, Chicago. So I would check that out. And for me, where you could find me is my website, LoryTatoulian.com, which is LoryTatoulian.com. Also all my socials, Instagram, Facebook for the older folks, and TikTok for the younger folks. So I'm all over the place.
I feel like, Lory, I think I saw you perform in San Francisco. It was less than a year ago, right? With your group.
Yes. That was June, I believe, of last year.
June of last year. Okay. So about a year ago.
That was a show I was a little bit nervous about, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Not because
I was there.
Because you were there, and I felt like, what is it? It's going to feel judged. And no, I felt nervous because it was a little bit thrown together. Like 3 of the cast members suddenly couldn't make it. And it was a little bit like all over the place it wasn't one of I'm not making excuses, but it wasn't the tightest show from the history of my shows. And like before we got on stage, we're like, I don't know if this is I don't know how this is gonna go, because we hadn't done a tech properly. Anyway.
Your shows are always great.
Thank you for coming and supporting the arts. And I think at the end of the day, people had a great time. Okay, thank you. I was just searching for a compliment.
No, I've seen your shows. I don't know. You don't come to San Francisco a lot, but they're always great. We always try to make it when we can.
Yeah, I think the first time I came to San Francisco was like 12 years. It's like 12 years ago when I first started doing the Big Bad Armo show. Yeah. So that was fun. That was fun. I love San Francisco. It's one of my favorite cities. Yeah. So one of my favorite shows was in San Francisco that ended, Beach Blanket Babylon.
Yes.
Too bad.
Yeah, that's a Bay Area classic. Yes.
Yeah.
It was
I hope they bring something like that back.
Well, we hope that you'll come back to the Bay Area.
Yes. Me too.
Yeah, because we can give that homework out all the time to go check you out.
Yes.
Lots of great stories today. Anything to close us up today? Any last stories or advice or anything you want to share?
Well, I'll just piggyback on what you just said. So I do have a show that I'm working on that I did this last year. It's called the End of the Year Show. And I give it a title, like last year was called 2024 You Hot Mess. And it takes all the big news events that has happened in the past year and we put them in sketch comedy. So, it's with a cast of 10 people. I write it. It's fun. And that to me is therapeutic because it's taking these really heavy topics. It's like, how can we possibly laugh at this? So that's what I try to do with that show is like looking back at the year and laughing about it.
Mhm.
So it kind of relieves that
Yeah.
the heaviness of it all and lessens it. And we have political sketches and people are booing some people and some people are cheering. And it's like totally involved. And everybody at the end of the day is just laughing at our very absurd world.
Oh, this one's 2025 is going to be a doozy.
It's like if you can I shift my camera really quick?
Sure.
Absolutely.
So these are all my notes
Oh my
for
goodness.
for 2025, and my other wall. It's like I have I don't even know where to start and begin with 2025.
The material just writes itself for you sometimes, doesn't it? It sounds like.
Handed on a platter. Handed on a platter. So but the last thing I just want to say is I think the work you're doing is awesome. Thank you for bringing me on. I completely believe in the power of comedy and humor because I believe comedy is just the flip side of pain and suffering. So if we look at it from that way, that it's just on the other side, for me, it's lessened the hard stuff in life. It just kind of lessens it, It's medicine. That's how I see it.
100%.
So go to comedy shows, take an improv class, do comedy.
It was our pleasure to have you, Lory. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Sarah, how can people find us?
Right. Check us out. You can always check us out wherever you find your podcast, whether it be Spotify or iTunes, or we're also on YouTube at The Comeback with Boomerang Healthcare. And we're so grateful to have you here today, Lory, and grateful to all our listeners. So if you've enjoyed today's episode, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any more updates. And until next time, keep moving forward. Your comeback is just getting started.